Turkey over time, it's relatively, a relative democracy, at least compared to other countries in the region. And instead of Erdogan reaching out more to liberals, he's actually alienating them and moving further to the right. He's doubling down on his conservative base. Why is he doing that? And I think this kind of gets us to the reality of deeply polarized societies. He's doing that in part because the people on the other side don't like him and probably aren't going to be convinced to vote for him anytime soon, because you have a real ideological divide between secularists and Islamists. So Erdogan, he had the Twitter ban, and he's calling his opponents traitors and all of that. So we might say as Americans, why is he doing that? But he was actually able to really rally and excite his base in the most recent local elections. And the AK Party actually increased its share of the vote in local elections from 39% to 45%. So we might say that Erdogan is losing it, and he's acting in a very erratic manner, but in the very narrow sense of winning and keeping power, he's actually solidifying his base support. Now, another theme, and this kind of gets me to another key theme of the book, which is this idea of illiberal democracy. So it's not just that Islamists are moving to the right because that's where their base is. They're moving to the right because they do actually believe in these things. They're Islamists for a reason. Otherwise, they would be something else. And this is why I think it's very important to take ideology seriously. And again, as Americans, we want to think that process trumps ideology, that when it comes to economics and delivering on bread and butter issues, that takes precedence. But Islamists do have a distinctive worldview. And this is where the key divide comes in. So I think it's important for us to kind of bring back ideology into the discussion. And part of what I try to do in the book is really go into greater detail about, what do Islamists really believe? What drives them? What animates them? And it kind of brings up a very, I think, thorny question is, what if Arabs decide, or what if Egyptians, or any particular group of people decide through the democratic process that they don't want to be liberal, that they want to participate in the democratic process and they believe in that, but it's not being used for liberal ends. So in other words, Islamists and the broader population to some extent have different views on gender rights. Just to give one example on that, there was a March 2012 YouGov poll where only 18% of Egyptians said they believed that a woman can be head of state, right? So that's a pretty low number. And if you break it down by gender, only 24% of female respondents said they believe that a woman can be head of state. So that tells us something. Democracy, at its essence, is about the right to make the wrong choice, in my view. So how far can this go? And, what will these illiberal democracies look like? And this is quite different from our own history, and this is why I think it's difficult from an American perspective to really grasp this, because liberalism and democracy went hand in hand in our own history. We started with constitutional liberalism first, at least some degree of constitutional liberalism, and that was established. And then we see a real move towards democracy later on in terms of universal suffrage, in terms of equality of all citizens, in terms of participating in the democratic process, and so on. Also, if we look at other Western democracies, you see a similar sequencing. Now, Fareed Zakaria, in his book, which some of you may have read, The Future of Freedom, Illiberal Democracy at Home and Abroad, makes the argument that it's better to start with the foundation of constitutional liberalism, and then, and only then, should you move towards democracy. So he has a clear sequencing there. Now, the problem with actually adopting that in Middle Eastern countries is it's very difficult to tell an Egyptian or a Jordanian or Tunisian voter listen, before we give you democracy, or before you're ready for democracy, you have to do all this other stuff first. Constitutional liberalism, establish the foundation. Democracy has become such a normative good in the public discourse, not just in the West, but across the world, that people want democracy right away, and rightfully so. They want to be able to make their own decisions, to vote for their own representatives.